In a top story this half hour, the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union is shocked over yesterday's killing of a Mpumalanga police officer. The official was killed while responding to a false complaint. Popcru's Richard Mamabolo says that they are concerned about the spate of police killings. Mamabolo says that they'll take their grievances regarding the high number of police killings to the union buildings next month. He says Ekangaga is becoming a hotspot for police killings, and two other officials were petrol bombed at their home recently. And joining us to unpack more on this story is Mpokwinika Sapu's spokesperson, and Richard Mamabola from Popcru as their media officer joins us in studio. Brigadier Vishnu Naidu, National Police spokesperson, is on the phone line. Good evening to all our guests, and thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Mr. Kwinika, in the sense that has there been a concerted effort to get to the bottom of the spate of police killings in either commissioning an investigation or task team? What has happened so far?
I think we do not have a plan to curb police killings, because every time when a police officer has fallen, what we hear from interested parties is that our condolences to the families of those who had fallen and nothing more. And we expected that the police and the ministry will by now have thought of even having gone through the process of trying to establish a summit on police killings. The previous summit, it only produced the 10-point plans, which all of us agreed that it is not helpful.
All right, and since then you're saying that these are empty promises, so to speak, and some form of shock being expressed, but effectively not getting to the bottom of the matter.
It is true, and I think we are now, even as societies now, getting used to police killings. We look at it as a normal killing of people in the country, and this should not really be like that. If the state put all concerted efforts to make sure that police killings is really eradicated or reduced, like the previous president of this country, President Zuma at Union Building 2 years ago, he said that Parliament will start debating debating the issues of sentences that are being passed on police killers, so that they become harsher and become deterrent to those that are going or would be police killers.
Just stay on the line, Mr. Kwinika. We also have Richard Mamabolo in studio. Thank you so much again for your time. And now you are going to stage a march to the union buildings to highlight the grievances and plight of police officers. But in itself, if there had been commitments and promises made and there was a watered-down summit that didn't yield much results, what else can come out of your engagement with the relevant policymakers?
Look, I think this is not a new issue. I mean, as Popcru, we know that there has not been any plan to deal with police killings. And of course, we've raised this matter back in 2015. But we have not only just raised it, we came up with proposals that we did submit to the SAPS management, which we think would be part of finding solutions. And of course, I think if you remember, just in the past weeks, Mr. Tele announced a mini plan of some sort to deal with some of the challenges therein. And what we had proposed was the restructuring of the SAPS, because currently as it stands, the structure is not in a way that it would be effective to deal with not only police killings, but many other challenges that we find within the SAPS. So there have been suggestions made. There is a reluctance on the part of the SAPS to ensure that we deal with all these challenges.
What difference has Minister Begitele made, Mr. Kwinika, since he's been appointed as a police minister?
Well, I think when it comes to issues of police killings, we haven't engaged much, and I don't think the public have got much out of him. He had only brought or inspired confidence in the force to say that don't die with these weapons in your hand. But Cindy, you will recall very well that it is not long that we are coming from the Kruger.4. Their matter was finalized last week, and all of those 4 people were found. Some of them were found guilty, but had suspended sentences. But if we did not come in and fight for those people, they were left to fend for themselves. And things have not changed, and I don't see it changing unless if the minister comes out now and say, look, guys, you have to go and defend yourself, and we will provide you with support, because that's all what they want. They want support from the management.
What makes, Mr. Mababula, what makes the police so vulnerable? We've seen even in Ingobo with the brazen attack on a police station. Is it because of the appetite for criminals to want to procure or gain access to weapons, etc., or are police essentially soft targets?
Look, I don't think police are soft targets, but I think the current conditions which they operate under have not been conducive for them to do their duties properly. And I think it's also difficult to be able to judge whether Bekele has done well or not at this point, because you remember that we come from a situation where we have never even had a single police commissioner finishing their term, except the first one, of course. And there have been a lot of changes within the criminal justice cluster that when somebody as a leader is supposed to implement a plan, that gets disrupted by the fact that they are replaced. So it's only now where there's starting to be a form of calm, and we obviously would want to be part of ensuring that working together with the SAPS and the community, because crime is not only a police matter, then can we obviously find ways to bring about changes. But I know definitely that a majority of police officers are committed to doing their work. As much as there is, many feel demoralized by the current conditions, and the fact that nothing is happening about their own internal issues is something that needs to be looked into.
So a number of issues that are plaguing police officers, not only working conditions, we know there's also issues around remuneration and whether they are adequately protected. So Mr. Kwinika, in your view, in how you police, especially bogus complaints or false calls that people make with the attempt of wanting to kill police officers?
They are very costly, those bogus calls, because they are rediverting the resources which are desperately needed by other section of our society, just to lure the vehicle so that they can be able to kill a police officer. And I think that is very barbaric, and South Africans must stop this thing, because they are depriving other people of a very essential services. But remember this, Cindy, it is not only police officers who dies and the issues of monies that is being, taken from the cash and transit and all these 51 people that are being killed in the country per day. It's just a variety of issues, which really begs the question to say, is the South African Police Service as an institution ready and prepared to fight crime in our country? That is the question which we all need to. We can have all these police officers. Look at them, they are dying, and most of them are junior police officers. You go outside here, you meet them, they are in a van. They are on daily basis, each and every minute and hour, day, week. They are outside there fending for South Africans who cannot fend for themselves against the criminals. But they are the first one to go down as well.
All right, just stay on the line. Mr. Mababula, are you also of the view that there is little public sympathy in the police killings, or that there isn't enough public outcry?
Look, I think there is sufficient public outcry, but I think it's mainly to do with what the management of the SAPS does. Look, currently we've got a population of 200,000 police officers looking after a population of 57 million South Africans. And of course, that definitely makes the point that police are under-resourced. We have heard, of course, calls that they will be cutting down on police jobs because of the budgetary constraints. And yet again, when we need to obviously effect plans that would ensure that you get more police officers on the ground, those would require more funding. The infrastructural integrity of police stations as well has been one of the challenges which led to the killing of police officers. As an example, what happened in Ngobo as well. So there are a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration. The budgets that go to the national office of the SAPS needs to be cut down, and of course the bloated structures need to be obviously undone, so that we have more seniors coming down to the ground where decisions are taken. This is where crime is happening, and yet you've got people sitting in provincial and national offices duplicating their roles.
Okay. And how do you then, at least if you are invited to negotiations, or where appointments are being made, Mr. Kwinika, as the South African Policing Union, are you involved at any point where you can also make a contribution as to where the fat can be trimmed and where the necessary resources can be allocated?
We believe as the SAPO that it is the management prerogative to manage the service, and the public must hold them accountable for whatever action they do. But the role of ensuring that the members on the ground get what is due to them, that is our role. That is why we are to play this role at structures such as the SSBC and even the PSBC, because that's where most of the bargaining takes place. Are we consulted about the issue of restructuring? Yes, we are. We are making inputs to the current reorganizing of the police service. But I will hate to hear for a moment that any person will come and say that we need to downsize the police today. Because the ratio of police officials today, one police officer is servicing more than 600 people in our country. And the population continues to grow. So I want, as the unions, both Popcru and SAPO, we need to approach these things with sober minds and make sure that the decisions which we make are in the best interest of the country, the best interest of the service, and in the best interest of the members themselves.
You're saying that the police force, as you're saying, especially in the higher echelon, is more bloated with bureaucrats as opposed to career police officers?
Well, that too. But firstly, I want to address the issue around, Mr. Gwinika claiming that it is the managerial prerogative to take decisions around what happens within the SAPS. That is totally wrong. You know, part of the challenges has been that there have been unilateral decisions taken which are supposed to have been engaged upon. We've got agreements within the Safety and Security Sectoral Bargaining Council which defines what changes can be made and how stakeholders are supposed to play a role in that. So it cannot be uniquely the role of managers to take decisions about the direction of the SAPS. And of course, I think we obviously looking into that because, you know, down on the ground, it becomes difficult for police officers to know who to account to or who to report to, you know, to take instructions from due to the bloated structures. We think that part of taking down all these people who are at the top echelons will actually empower police stations, or rather these stations at the ground, to be in a position to take immediate decisions instead of waiting for instructions which come from somewhere in Pretoria.
Your response, Mr. Gwinika, that it is a collective responsibility to ensure that the South African National Police Service is efficient and works effectively.
You see, I respect his opinion, and I think he should respect mine too. I don't want to use this platform really to show how different are we when they approach about the issues of policy in this country. But I think South Africans will know that the police accounts to an executive authority responsible for policing in this country. I don't account to that minister. I don't do that. My responsibility as a unionist is to create conditions which are conducive for our members to can work in. That is one. And to play an oversight role over policing and to create labor peace. Those are the most functions the the unions have to play in any working environment. That the issue of whether the police performs and all those stories, I don't go to portfolio committee and account to those people for my performance. I don't do that. My role is to make sure that they do their work.
Well, Mr. Mamabolo seems to disagree with you that there is more that the unions can do besides obviously picketing or advocating for better working conditions, etc. But let's just get back to the matter of how then do you go forward? What is the objective of the march, number one, besides handing over a memorandum? How are you going to go about it? How many members are you mobilizing across the union?
Look, our march is not only focused on policing issues. It covers, obviously, the challenges within the correctional services. It focuses on the challenges within traffic. As you would know, we have taken resolutions and decisions that have been signed with the employer as far back as 10, 15 years ago, which have not been implemented. Looking for, firstly, around the issue of promotions, you get police officials and correctional officials who have been serving in one position, or rather, serving in one position for over 15 years without promotions. So those are some of the issues that we would obviously want to address, because there have been commitments around addressing those. The payments of the OSDs within correction services as well, that has not been done. We have been making complaints about overcrowding and understaffing. All of these issues have not been addressed. So in a way, we will be raising the challenges around such matters. And of course, I think part of what the lack of signing of these agreements have shown, obviously, is the demoralization of members within all these sectors, and of course, the inefficiency of, the inefficiency of the police to deal with crime decisively. That is why we're bringing all these issues on the table to say they have been long overdue, they need to be addressed, and if not, I think we'll obviously be looking into further steps to take beyond the march. So the march does sit on the 13th of July. We will be marching to the union buildings.
All right, on the line, we're also joined by Brigadier Vishnu Naidu. He's the National Police spokesperson. Good evening to you, Mr. Naidu, and thank you so much. Or Brigadier, thank you so much for your time. Just in terms of your contribution to this discussion around police killings, where in this particular case in Mpumalanga, there was a bogus call that was made, a distress signal was sent out, and police officers were then ambushed. How do you police something like that?
Well, good evening, Cindy, and thank you very much for this opportunity. You know, I was in my earlier interviews with most radio stations and television stations, I've been saying it's a very difficult situation for us. You know, when police officers are called out, even if it's to a legitimate call, and when they are confronted with a situation where they see no threat of violence, no threat of loss of life or damage or injury, then, you know, it's difficult for them to, you know, to prepare themselves, albeit that when in training, our police officers are always advised, indoctrinated, if for the lack of a better word, for them to treat every situation as a life-threatening situation. But if you take these two incidents that happened in Gauteng, the one in Springs and the one at Ikangala near Bronkhorstspruit in Gauteng, you know, the members were in situations where there was no evidence or there was no threat whatsoever that they could have identified that could have caused them to have, you know, been faced with a situation of losing their lives. So, yes, it is really difficult. But we always say that, you know, members must always treat every situation as a life-threatening situation so that they can be operationally ready when they in that situation.
Brigadier, I mean, you're talking about the training in that, you know, it is they oriented or inducted in such a way that you need to call for backup or make sure that, you know, that you treat the situation as a dangerous situation. But again, there's the issue about resources or lack thereof. Is this also part of the problem that police officers would put themselves on the line of fire, so to speak, where they can't afford to wait for backup?
You know, Cindy, resources, it'll never be enough. No matter which country you go to, resources will, you know, it's always, no amount of resources will be enough. We'll always want more resources. But I think what is important is that every situation that our officers are confronted with has to be treated on its own merit. For example, if you're called to a domestic violence case, you know, where someone phones to complain that there's, you know, there's abuse taking place, a police officer will attend there to render a normal basic police service, to enforce the Domestic Violence Act. He wouldn't expect to be confronted by a person or a suspect that's going to become overly aggressive or violent to a point where he's going to shoot a police officer. It's not expected. But it has happened. It has happened in the Western Cape, it has happened in KwaZulu-Natal, it has happened in Gauteng, where our police officers, if not seriously injured, they even lost their lives. So we cannot now say that, you know, police officers can attend a scene and not treat it as a life-threatening situation. We have to treat every situation as a life-threatening situation.
Yeah, let's get a response. I beg your pardon. Let's get a response from Popcru and Sapo. We'll start with you, Mr. Mamabula.
Look, I think the increase of resources will, as much as they might not end the entire criminal activities, but they can reduce. So it's important that there are more resources put into the SAPS. And in fact, you go to some of the police stations within rural areas, you find that they do not have even resources to go out and address some of the callings that they get, you know. So we think it's quite an important aspect of improving police service to the public, increasing resources, of course. So that's one important aspect which we cannot necessarily throw away.
Yeah, Mr. Kweneta, you're welcome to engage Brigadier Naidu as well. I just want to get back to how this march that is being planned for the 17th of July is going to change the circumstances for police officers, many of whom are South Africa's finest, that enable us to have a peaceful night's sleep while they're keeping guard. So in your view, Brigadier, are you of the sense that the lives of police officers hasn't been prioritized, or even investigations, including harsher sentences, being meted to criminals?
Cindy, let me just first start and complete the aspect of the resources. Just yesterday and today, there's been robust engagements on the movement of resources from a strategic framework level. That means from your head office, your divisional commissioner's office, your provincial offices, your cluster offices, right down to the localized policing level, to the station level. So that aspect of resources is being addressed within the confines, budgetary confines that we have currently. Because remember, the country, the entire country, economically is faced with a challenge. So we are resolving around ways to try and ensure that we can improve on the resources. That's one. Two, when it comes to the lives of our police officers, we ensure that our police officers don't just get adequate training to protect themselves or the lives of the innocent people in South Africa. We also we train them to an extent where we go beyond just protecting their lives. They must be able to effectively and efficiently effect arrest, bring criminals to justice. When you talk about imposing of harsher sentences on criminals, you would have found lately even judges have made comments on the seriousness of criminals attacking and killing police officers, and he has put suspects behind bars for life. And that's starting to happen now. So now with the criminal justice system coming together and ensuring that there is a clear message being sent out on how seriously government is taking attacks and killing of police officers. We're trying to have a sense of encouragement as far as that is concerned, and that is also encouraging our police officers. But I think what is most important is that we need to see greater assistance and education, because clearly from those two incidents that happened at Ikangale and Springs, clearly we're finding our society is becoming more and more aggressive. Because, I mean, to just shoot police officers at point-blank range without any respect for life whatsoever, for no reason. You know, in one case they took the firearm of the police officer, and we are putting that down to robbery as being a motive. But to shoot them in cold blood,
yeah.
It's just an indication that it's a societal problem.
Let's engage Mr. Kweneta as well. Earlier on, before you joined us, we were talking about the lack of a strategic plan in dealing with police killings and focusing, even if it's a specialized unit. And that seems not to be in place. Mr. Kweneta, can you just pick up on that?
You see, I want to say that I think my colleagues will agree with me that this issue is not about cars. The police killings is not about money. The police killings is not about the building. The police killings is about the moral of societies whom we serve. The police killings is about the people that we serve, which have got no respect for life. The police killings is about the lack of support which we get from the societies which we serve. Police killings is about the lack, to give a police officer did not think for a second when he's supposed to act. When he acts and a person is killed, then everybody says the police are trigger happy. The police are trained to kill people. Let's come to the issues of training. Training is a change of mindset of how people think. Training needs to be complemented by resources such as bullets. You know, Brigadier, now that you had a very serious problem with bullets. You had no bullets to even give your very special task force. You don't don't have resources such as bullets. Your bulletproof vests are old. Where is innovation in the police? Why do we still make these people carry heavy materials such as this one? These materials that they are carrying, the bulletproof vests that they are carrying, are more than 26 years old.
Brigadier Naidu, your response?
Bulletproof vests have a lifespan. I agree. Bulletproof vests have a lifespan, and police stations, units, and so forth are encouraged to apply for bulletproof vests in advance, long before the expiry date. I'm not going to go on a public platform and debate with Labour. Labour and us, we engage continuously on how we can improve on our mandate, our constitutional mandate to service the community. Yes, the issue about the bullets, there was a challenge, but that has been resolved. The challenge do arise now and again, but no police officer will go out on his duty without being equipped with the basic tools of trade. Whether there was a shortage or no shortage, no, we cannot expose our police officers to dangerous situations without having the necessary equipment on their person when executing their duties.
Yeah,
so I don't think the situation was as bad as where police officers didn't have that necessary equipment.
Yes, but I think it's possibly on other occasions. But Popcru is also of the view that there essentially isn't a plan, and these are members of society, of course, who are performing an essential service, that of safety and security. And if Labour feels that there is no plan, especially in protecting its members, then it means that society is vulnerable. Society is essentially sitting with a police force that is a lame duck.
Cindy, can I just say something? There is a national police safety strategy. There is one. It's being implemented, and part of the strategy is the training of our members and the equipping of our members with all the necessary and relevant equipment. And more than that, I don't want to go through the whole strategy because it will defeat the object of having a strategy. It will benefit the criminals. If I told you what the strategy entails, it will benefit the criminals more. But there is a police safety strategy. So nobody can say there isn't a police. There is a national and a provincial police safety strategy.
Okay, Brigadier Naidu, in the interest of time, I'm going to have to let you go. Thank you so much. We'll give you the last word, Mr. Mamabolo.
Well, thanks. I think we're still going ahead with our march. We believe that issues that we are raising are genuine issues. They have not been addressed, and some of the issues Mr. Naidu is raising here are not affected as it claims them to be. So the march is on the 13th of July. DCS members, traffic members and police members will be part of the march to raise all these matters.
All right, we're going to leave that there. Thanks indeed for joining us. And of course, Popcru, spokesperson for the South African Policing Union on the line, and Police and Prison Civil Rights Union spokesperson and communications officer, Richard Mamabolo, and Brigadier Vishnu Naidu, the National Police spokesperson for the South African Police Service. We'll leave it there for the moment. We'll be back after this.